A few years ago, I was really curious to just kind of think through how do we transform our university? When we say that we are seeking in Chi Alpha to transform the university, the marketplace, and the world, the marketplace and the world really don't happen unless we're transforming the university. That's the training ground, that's the boot camp, that's the place to really get the ball rolling. And I was kind of thinking about that, like what is it like, not just to have an impact on the campus, and not, of course, just to impact the students that are in our ministry, but what does it actually look like to transform the university? And so I kind of asked that question looking through two kind of systematic ways. I'll nerd out on you for just a second, but I asked, well, there's sort of this idea, sometimes used in marketing and different things, that talks about kind of tipping point. Malcolm Gladwell popularized that idea a little bit, that somewhere around that 15 to 18% of a quote-unquote market, that there's a saturation point where suddenly you're tipping in favor. The first time I saw an iPhone, I thought it was silly. The second time I saw it, I was like, let me see that thing, let me play with it. Oh, it's kind of cool. Third time, fourth time. As soon as more of my friends started getting them, a few of my friends started getting them, I realized I wanted one, right? There was kind of this tipping point from like, oh, that's silly, to, oh, actually, I was able to interact with a smartphone enough to realize the value that it could have in my life. And so often with Jesus, we're in that place in our world. People, he's intrinsically valuable, he's worth it, but people haven't interacted with him, or people that love him enough to realize why they should care about him. And so I kind of asked that question, like what would it look like looking at all the other campus ministries and churches and outreaches, and how many people are already connected with Christian community, and what would it take for us to get to around that 15%? And then how many small group leaders would Chi Alpha needs to have in order to kind of reach that tipping point? And I don't even know what would happen on a campus like CSU if suddenly we had that tipping point kind of idea happen. But I also asked it in another way, like how could we get to a point where every student on the university was relationally connected with someone who was fighting for them? And so again, kind of used modern studies on like how many relationships most people have, and understanding that most small group leaders would have relationships. A lot of them would overlap with each other because they're all in the same ministry. And what would it take for every student on the university to relationally connect to each other? And I'm not saying this is necessarily from the Lord, but I thought it was really interesting. There's a certain subjectiveness to this, right? It's a little bit of like, well, roughly these numbers. And yet, at the end of the day, we got to the exact same number, which was 586 small group leaders would be how many we would need to have in Chi Alpha in order to reach a point where every student was relationally connected to someone who was fighting for them. Which interestingly is at the same point where you kind of hit that tipping point. And so for us, small group leadership is contextualizing these discipleship principles in our lives as we're learning to relationally connect to the people around us and fight for our campus and minister to those who are ready to really grow in their journey of faith with Jesus. And so for us, we believe that we can transform the university. Now, that's a huge, crazy number in our world, and yet, we think, what, the Lord is with us, and we're going to continue to strive for that day where we could say, even if we're certainly probably aren't going to be the full picture, other ministries and other, the laborers are few. But it's the harvest that we need to be about. And so that looks like oftentimes for us to get to that point, that's around every small group leader in our ministry replicating themselves twice over before they leave us, saying basically that there's two people fighting for the campus where there was one. And over about 7 or 8 years, you kind of hit that multiplication effect where you get to that point. So that's sort of the kind of the idea that we play with when we're talking about how practically can you reach a campus. Is that possible? It's more possible than sometimes we think, but we do have to be about the Father's business. And it's not as simple as just saying, okay, we're going to do this. We can't do this without the Lord, but we do know that the Lord is about advancing his kingdom if we'll step out and watch him step in and do what only he can do to transform the university as we take on our part to partner in the work of the kingdom on our university.